Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Today I want to do a quick review of the 2021 Yamaha R1. So it took me about 3 to 4 years to make up my mind to purchase this motorcycle, and the main reason why it took so long is I could not figure out if I really liked the side exhaust, which I personally prefer the undertail exhaust of the previous generations. And the second part had to do with the headlights. The way that they set them up is a little bit of a retractive step in an alignment with more of the R6 series, where only one of the headlights turns on when you start up the bike. So on the previous generations, the 04 that I had and the 2012 that I had, both of the headlights turn on when you're riding the motorcycle. And it's just aesthetics. I understand that it's not that big of a deal, but it's just something that kind of drew me away from this motorcycle. One other thing that they made a change on this series is the passenger seat. And what I noticed is that if you're completely okay with having the passenger seat on, that's totally fine. But I always put a cowl on my seat. I don't take passengers on my bike, and I honestly would have preferred to be able to retain the storage in the back of my seat. With this generation, as you notice, there is no keyhole. Is when you want to put a cowl on, you have to eliminate the passenger seats, and this bolts directly into the frame of the bike. So you're just losing the storage space in the back. Not a big deal, especially if you're more performance oriented, but that's just something that I want to call out. I ended up picking up a Works USA titanium exhaust for this bike, and what I immediately noticed is that the sound is coming out to the side instead of what I had on the 2012 or the 04, where the sound comes out to the rear of the bike. So what that causes is a little bit of ringing in my ear. Again, I could always wear earplugs, but again, that's just something that I want to call out that is different on this series of the bike compared to the previous versions. One of the major things that really bugs me on this motorcycle are these mirrors. And I'm not sure if it is the positioning of the mirrors or the shape of the mirrors, but I am really not a big fan. I do like the fact that they have the turn signals integrated into the housing. That's wonderful. I like it for visibility and looks and everything else. But I don't know what it is, but I do not get very good visibility on these mirrors. I find that on the 2012 R1 that I rode previously, the lights may have been either more forward or a little bit out, or their shape was larger. I don't know what it is, but I have a hard time finding the right spot for these mirrors to be able to see clearly what's behind me and to the side of me. So I have to constantly compromise what position I'm in. I have to compromise what I want to look at, if I want to be able to see what's behind me or to the side of me. So that's just one thing that I have not been a fan of. Several things I should mention that I think Yamaha has improved on this generation of the R1. The first has to do with the starting, and I came off from the 2012 Yamaha R1, and I noticed that it had an issue with cold starts. When the temperatures would drop below 60 degrees all the way down to 40 degrees, it had an issue of starting sometimes. And the workaround for that was to crank the bike, stop cranking, and then crank again for it to start normally. Otherwise, what would sometimes happen is you would get into a scenario where you would crank and crank and crank, and then it would have a hesitation before it would start. I don't know what was the change on the ignition, but something was improved on this generation of the R1. It only takes about 2 cranks before the bike is fired up, which is great, and it doesn't matter what the temperature range is. Another positive adjustment on this generation of the Yamaha R1 has to do with the oil pressure sensor. So in the previous generation of the Yamaha R1, what the issue was is that if you were in sustained high RPMs, your oil pressure light would go off and it would seem like you have low oil. And I don't know what the difference is on this generation, but they have changed that, and I have not seen that error come up at all, no matter how long I am in the high RPM range. So positive change. Yamaha, thank you for fixing that. The other bonus feature of this generation of the Yamaha R1 is the stock quick shifter. And I cannot say more positive things about this feature. I love it. If you have never had a quick shifter before, I highly recommend either investing into one, or if you get it stock on your bike, you are in luck. Another noticeable difference on this series of the R1 is the electronics. Let's go ahead and take a look at the startup sequence, the overall gauge cluster, and the shutdown sequence. If you're moving to this Yamaha R1 from the previous generation, you're going to find the controls and the handling to be very similar. If you have never been in the Yamaha R1, I will tell you that you will not be disappointed. This motorcycle has plenty of power, exceptional handling, and definitely has lots of features to make it a comfortable experience, whether you're on the track or just simply doing some casual riding on the road. All right guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. Ride safe and take care.